Do you know the feeling of wanting to fall asleep at night, but no matter how hard you try, you just cannot? Your mind is active, it is racing, you feel anxious, and perhaps you've even had a physically demanding day. You could physically feel exhausted, you're mentally exhausted. Maybe you even crave the bedroom, but as soon as you get into bed, boom, you're wide awake, your mind is racing, you're anxious, and it feels like your mind is almost self-sabotaging. You almost wish that sleep was effortless, but the harder you try, perhaps even the more it actually backfires. I'm Fiona, I'm a recovered chronic insomniac, and I truly know how this feels. It is horrendous. I feel like nobody really speaks about this enough. Insomnia or trouble sleeping is absolutely horrible. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down why that is. Why are we feeling anxious at night? Why is our brain so active? Why does it actually do this to us? And also second, I'm going to be giving you the tools as to what you can actually do instead in order to slowly find your way back to peaceful and effortless sleep. Okay, so the number one thing and the first thing that you need to know in order to better understand why your brain is so active at night is to know that thoughts are automatic, meaning that you cannot control your thoughts through brute force. Yes, you can change your thoughts over the course of time, but that is not through avoidance or through distraction. In fact, you probably feel like you do not have this issue during the day. Maybe you feel like your brain only sabotages your sleep, and that is because during the day you are distracted with work, family, physical activities, mentally challenging tasks, studying, whatever it may be. During the day, you do not have this issue where your brain is overly anxious. Perhaps you don't even consider yourself to be an overly anxious person. But at night, the story is completely reversed. Perhaps your brain genuinely feels like it's self-sabotaging you, and the harder you actually try and control your thoughts, the louder they actually get. So number one, remember, you cannot control your thoughts. Thoughts are completely automatic. And number two is to know that thoughts actually provide a very primal function. And this brings us into the second thing that you need to know in order to break the cycle of why our brain is so active at night. And that is to know that our brain's primary function is one of survival, meaning that we are constantly trying to avoid potential harm. That means anything from potentially harming us, something that happened in the past, meaning we're trying to avoid that from happening again in the future. Any potential threats or any potential problems, we're trying to solve those and making sure that those don't happen in the present moment, and simultaneously avoiding potential threats from happening in the future. So when our brain hits the pillow at night, our brain is actively trying to do those things. It is processing our day-to-day lives. It is actively trying to solve problems, or potentially it is also rooted in fear, meaning that it is trying to avoid a potential threat from actually hurting you. And believe it or not, insomnia is one of those things that your brain is trying to avoid, / also a problem that your brain is also trying to solve. Meaning that because you have maybe been struggling with this for some time, it could be days, weeks, or months, your brain has already identified that not sleeping is something that needs to be avoided. However, we have gotten confused because sleep, similar to thoughts, is one of those things that actually can't be controlled. Thoughts and emotions subside the more that we allow them to be there. We'll get into how you can actually practice this element of mindfulness, but sleep is one of those similar things where sleep comes to us in the absence of effort. However, because we have identified that not sleeping is a potential threat or something that we need to avoid, our brain is trying to solve the problem of how we make sleep happen. And this is why the issue is a little bit paradoxical, because the more we actually try and chase sleep, the less it actually happens, and the more it actually seems like a problem that needs to be solved and a threat that needs to be avoided. So by now, by understanding that our thoughts are automatic, and two, our thoughts are actually serving a very primal function, meaning that our thoughts are actually there in order to solve problems and also avoid potential threats, we can start to understand that our thoughts and our, emotions and this anxiety that we may be feeling around bedtime is not actually something that is self-sabotaging us. It is actually something that is happening in our favor. And that is because our brain has identified that at night, and I guess specifically when your head hits the pillow, is the only time it actually has in order for it to process all of these feelings. And that is where we come into how we can actually start to break the cycle. And this is where I would encourage you to know that our thoughts, even though they are uncomfortable, they are there to help us. And the only thing that our brain is actually asking of us in this moment is actually to listen. And the importance of actually listening to our thoughts comes down to the first principle, because we need to remember that thoughts are automatic, and the more we try and avoid them, the louder they get. And that is because our thoughts are trying to warn us of something. If our thought is trying to warn us of a potential problem that needs to be solved or a potential threat that needs to be avoided, and you're trying to distract yourself or avoid that thought from happening, it's just going to get louder. And that's because your brain is actually trying to solve these problems and avoid these threats in order to keep yourself safe. Which is why we need to start flipping the script. This is where I truly believe that insomnia recovery doesn't actually happen at night. It happens during the day. And that is because, yes, our symptoms of not sleeping happen at night. We wish we could sleep, which is the illusion that insomnia is a sleep problem. But in fact, it is actually a survival and a fear problem, meaning that we need to address the way that we're feeling, not just at night, but also during the day. By now, you're probably wondering, well, what am I actually supposed to do about this? And as somebody who personally struggled with this myself, and I work with so many people who struggle with the same, education is so important. The more you understand why your thoughts are appearing, why you're feeling a specific way, trust me, it is going to get so much easier to actually break the cycle. Which brings us into what you can actually do. And we're going to break this into two different components, during the day and also at night, because realistically, our brain is super active at night because we're not actually giving it enough time to process all of our worries during the day. So during the day, I'm going to encourage you to set aside 15 minutes of your time where you are going to be not distracted, not on your phone, not with other people. And ideally, with a pen to paper, you're going to be writing down all of your thoughts and all of your emotions. And this is what I like to call scheduled worry time, meaning that you are scheduling time during the day to worry and process all of the things that you may be thinking. And you will probably feel like you have the natural inclination to change or alter those thoughts because we, I guess, feel uncomfortable about having uncomfortable thoughts. But this is where I'm going to encourage you to actually allow whatever thoughts, they're not good or bad because they're automatic, just to be put down on paper. And if that is specifically related to sleep, great. Definitely write down that you're afraid of not sleeping, that you're afraid about how this is going to affect your job, your relationships, how you show up for yourself, how you maybe don't even feel like yourself at the moment. The more you write all of that down, what we're actually doing is, one, showing our brain that we are listening to all of its concerns. And two, we're also starting to realize that thoughts are automatic and that we can't control them. And in actually doing this, we start to realize that our thoughts are also not rooted in fact. Oftentimes we feel emotionally attached to our thoughts because we take them at face value. We believe that everything that we're thinking is rooted in fact. And the more we practice mindfulness, or this idea of simply observing our thoughts, the more we actually start to realize that our thoughts are actually not rooted in fact. Meaning that a lot of the worries and a lot of the concerns that you may be having around sleep are actually projections of our mind, and the projections of our mind trying to keep us safe from a potential future situation. But I don't know about you, but I can't predict the future. My mind tends to believe that it can predict the future, but in fact, it cannot. So that's number one. Spend time during the day where you're going to purposefully download your thoughts, schedule that worry into a 10 to 15 minute window. Give it time, because this is, again, not a practice that happens overnight, and then see how you feel over the course of a few days. Number two, what to actually do at night. And this is where we're going to shift the perspective. Up until now, you may have been focusing on making sleep happen. But we now know that sleep cannot be controlled and that our thoughts also can't be controlled. That basically means that in order for us to allow sleep to happen, we need to stop chasing sleep, stop trying to avoid specific thoughts, and start moving our perspective into allowing sleep to come to us. And this is where our focus is no longer going to be on sleep altogether, meaning that we're going to focus on all the things that we can control. I personally used to also love to journal at night, specifically when my brain was very active. I used to go to sleep, and I still do, with a notebook at my bedside table. And that would allow me a tool, or would provide me with a tool that I could, I guess, go to whenever my brain was very active. And even now that I am fully recovered from insomnia, I am still human. I am a perfectionist by nature. I absolutely love the idea of control, even though I know it is an illusion. And I sometimes have a very overly active brain, and I allow myself to simply write down all of my thoughts before going to bed, because this is me showing my brain that I am safe, that I can listen to my thoughts, and that sleep can still come to me. So that's number one. Make space for your thoughts. Stop trying to run away from them. And number two, focus on what you can control. And this is where I like to say, you can't control sleep, but you can control what you do with your time, right? This is where this idea of befriending wakefulness comes in. How do you shift your perspective into allowing sleep to come to you? By focusing on something else entirely. This is where you're going to do anything except for making sleep happen. I like to ask my clients, are you doing something with the intention of making sleep happen, or are you doing something because you genuinely enjoy it? So this is where you're going to read a book or watch a show or listen to a podcast. This is basically you allowing your brain to focus on something different than sleep. And you'll also start to realize that the more you stop making sleep the focus, the easier it actually comes to you. Anyway, I hope this video has been helpful. If you still are unsure as to how to actually break the cycle of insomnia, I have linked my 5 days to better sleep email series below. Or if you have general questions about insomnia, this topic, or something else, feel free to drop those in the comments below, and I promise to get back to you.